This season, Instacart has your back to school. As in, they've got your back to school lunch favorites like snack packs and fresh fruit. And they've got your back to school supplies like backpacks, binders, and pencils. And they've got your back when your kid casually tells you they have a huge school project due tomorrow. Let's face it, we were all that kid. So first, call your parents to say, I'm sorry. And then download the Instacart app to get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes all school year long. Get a $0 delivery fee for your first 3 orders while supplies last. Minimum $10 per order. Additional terms apply.
We all belong outside. We're drawn to nature. Whether it's the recorded sounds of the ocean we doze off to, or the succulents that adorn our homes, nature makes all of our lives, well, better. Despite all this, we often go about our busy lives removed from it. But the outdoors is closer than we realize. With AllTrails, you can discover trails nearby and explore confidently. With offline maps and on-trail navigation, download the free app today and make the most of your summer with AllTrails.
Okay, you can do this.
I know. Carvana makes it so convenient to sell your car. It's just hard to let go. My car and I have been through so much together.
But look, you already have a great offer from Carvana. That was fast.
Well, I know my license plate and VIN by heart, and those questions were easy.
You're almost there. Now to just accept the offer and schedule a pickup or drop-off.
How'd you do it? How are you so strong in letting go of your car?
Well, I already made up my mind, and Carvana's so easy.
Yeah, true. And sold.
Go to Carvana.com to sell your car the convenient way.
It's time. Time to get in the zone. Time to get in the zone with the 49ers web zone. This is the No Huddle Podcast with Al and Brian.
All right, you guys. So I got an email. I ignore a lot of these emails that I get or whatever, but I got one that was actually pretty interesting to me. And it was from casino.org, where they did, they got some data where they pulled thousands of NFL fans to see the most and the least miserable fan bases. Now, I was a little surprised, and I wanted to ask you guys some of these questions. I thought it would be a little bit fun. So essentially, the most points means you're the most miserable, and the least means you're the least miserable. The least miserable fan base in the NFL is the Chiefs at 13.24.
Fair.
The second least is the Niners at 16.78. And then when you go to third, it jumps all the way to 36.12. And the most miserable fan base in the league is the Carolina Panthers at 99.23. So they're just on suicide watch, basically. But I looked at this and I'm like, I don't know, man. Like every January, February, I'm pretty miserable. Like I'm in the corner with my beer after these playoff games, like holy shit, it happened again. So I feel like Niner fans are maybe, I don't know, a little too optimistic. And again, I know I got 2 East Coast guys on here who are probably miserable pricks like me. So I'll ask you guys, maybe you're not as miserable as me, I don't know. But I'll ask you guys, we'll go through these and we'll see if you guys agree with this. So first, these are scale of 1 to 5. The scale of 1, very poor, to 5, very good. How would you rate the competence of your team's management? After we just got done bitching about, but we just got done bitching about their contract negotiations.
I would say 4.5. I'll take the minute. Like, if you could do it on a grade scale, it'd be like the A-. You know, where they're really good, but they got this one weakness that's starting to rear its head, and I want a caveat because that might become a much bigger deal that really downgrades them in the future.
All right, so the fans said a 4, so they're pretty close to what we were.
Yeah.
So on a scale of 1, not upset at all, to 5, extremely upset, how irritated or upset do you get when your team loses? And the fan said 2.9.
When the team loses? Isn't every fan a 5 when your team loses?
Yeah, I was going to say I'm a
feels
5.6.
5. That's 10.
Yeah.
Right. Like I thought that I was like, who are you asking that? Like, are you just like, oh, okay, like we'll win next week? No, I'm pissed about everything when they lose. All right, 1 to 5. How satisfied are you with the team's performance over the last 5 years?
5 being the most?
Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
No, it can't be a 5 without a Super Bowl.
Yes, it can, man.
No, it cannot. I am very satisfied, but if you don't win the Super Bowl, then let me put it this way. Would you rather have the last 5 years of that is the Rams history or the last 5 years of the 49ers history? I'm taking the Rams history because they have a Super Bowl title.
Yeah, obviously we all want Super Bowl titles, but I keep having this fight. I swear, I feel like I'm in a time loop. It's still freaking amazing where the 49ers are.
4 is pretty amazing. but you cannot be a 5 if you haven't won a Super Bowl.
I agree with Levin.
4.9.
I agree with Levin. So the fan said 4.1. And then the last question is on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being never, 5 being always. How often do you feel let down by your team? And this, to me, these two things go together. So the fan said 2.5, but when I look at it during the regular season, I feel great. I'm not let down. But the kicks in the balls, like if you've seen Montana and you were there for the 90s, you can kind of deal with what you've seen the last however many years. But if you're like a Niner fan who's 30 or younger, all you know is pain. So like, yeah, they've had some really good seasons, but the end of it has been, dude, we're like in Buffalo Bills territory. We really are for this generation of Niners fans. Like, it's been so bad the way that they lose and how close they've come. So I don't know. Like, I feel like it's got to be a two-part. Do I feel let down by? Yeah, it sucks. Like, it sucked. But also, I think a lot of teams would trade with them. So it's a double-edged sword.
Sure.
The season is always, the end of the season is almost always a kick in the balls, unless you lose the Super Bowl. It was a kick in the balls for the Packers, right? It was certainly a kick in the balls for the Cowboys, although their whole existence is like a kick in the nuts. I mean, right? Like every team, the Ravens in the AFC Championship game, like it always is going to feel like that. It's not just because the 49ers, have been so close to a Super Bowl. Anytime you lose in the playoffs, it feels like that. Niner fans had just kind of forgotten that because outside of the fluke thing with Brock Purdy's elbow, they basically don't lose in the playoffs. Like they've been really, really, really good. And if you go back and you were just talking about the 90s, if the Niners do manage to get one Super Bowl, this era right now is right up there with the 90s. It's right there. And I feel like we're all angry and frustrated, and I get that, and I'm there with you. But we should also zoom out a little bit and be like, damn, this is still awesome.
There's actually two teams that enter the offseason satisfied and excited. The team that won the Super Bowl and the team that secured the number 1 pick. Because as soon as the season ends, they probably accepted going into the season, we're not winning anything this year. So the moment they secure that number 1, like in the offseason hits, they go, all right, who are we getting? So they're excited going in the offseason. But how much I feel let down, I feel like it's almost like a heartbeat graph. Because if you go to like the beginning of the season, the first 5 weeks, they don't let me down at all. And then that week, like 6, 7, 8, 9, most seasons, they've let me down completely, and it goes flatlining. Because they seem to go through this stretch the last 2 years where they win 5 games and then they decide we're taking a month off from football.
Right.
But then like end of season comes and I'm super satisfied again until you hit February. And then February, March, and until the draft in April, I'm super dissatisfied. And then from there, it slowly ticks up until you get to the regular season again.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but they are allergic to winning football in October. It's weird. It's like I don't know. And then November hits and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is kind of the second half of the season. Let's turn it on again." Because they have always been a second half team, both in games and in seasons. Obviously, except for 2019 and 2023 when they started 5-0. But and here's the thing: only one team is ever going to win the Super Bowl, and I'm going to always think it's going to be the team with the best quarterback on the planet, and that's Patrick Mahomes, until somebody proves otherwise, right? And so I'm going into this season thinking the 49ers have a shot, but Patrick Mahomes still exists. And so are they going to win the Super Bowl? I damn sure hope so, but I don't think it's as likely as it would be if Patrick Mahomes didn't exist. But it's still an enjoyable ride, right? Like just think about what it was to be a fan in the Mike Singletary era, in the Mike Nolan era, in and I'm using era loosely, the Chip Kelly era, right? Like that was miserable. It was miserable. And so the fact that I can go into every season knowing since really 2020, really, my team has a shot to win the Super Bowl. That's really all I can ask for. And then if they win it, I'm ecstatic. If they lose, I'm devastated. But at the very least, I got to watch my team play winning football for an entire season. and enjoy the ride. And so to me, that's where it's like, is it heartbreaking to not get a Super Bowl? 100%. Do I consider the season a failure if they don't win the Super Bowl? I mean, that in and of itself is a failure, losing the Super Bowl, but the season as a whole, absolutely not. It was a hell of a ride, and I enjoyed every second of it.
Don't you think there's some hypocrisy, though, when the 49ers invite Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman, Jim Harbaugh, all those guys to be honored at Levi's Stadium during the season, and they are met with cheers and applause, and they should be. They didn't win a Super Bowl either. And I feel like if you tried to do that with Kyle Shanahan, people would be spitting on him, booing him, all that.
Give it a decade after he leaves. If he came back, people would cheer him.
But also,
they should cheer him now.
No one expected that out of those guys. Like when Harbaugh came in, nobody expected that. So I always felt that team was an underdog, had an underdog feel to it. I do want to say, but you're right. You're right, Stats. Like people should appreciate it a little bit more. I just want to say two things. The Packers sort of were playing with house money in the playoffs. Nobody expected them to be there. They're ascending. If you're a Packers fan, it's like, you know what? We won a game. We gave the Niners all they could handle. We're going to be there this year. I think here's what I worry about with Niners fans. Not so much us who've seen the Super Bowls. Like we got that. We saw a Super Bowl. We're okay. But these younger fans, okay, my wife is a Bills fan. She grew up in Buffalo. Anytime the Bills are like ahead in the playoffs or things are looking good, her face just glazes over. She knows it's coming. She doesn't know how it's going to happen, whether it's a missed kick or whether it's, McDermott screwing up and Leslie Frazier screwing up the end of the game. She doesn't know how it's going to happen, but she knows it's going to happen. And I worry about that for us, for this fan base, that at some point, those who haven't seen a Super Bowl, we're going to be up by 10 with 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and everybody's face is just going to glaze over.
I'm there. I was there in the Super Bowl when they were up. I was like, it's coming. They're going to have to keep scoring. The defense is not going to stop Mahomes. This game's not over. Like I at no point it was like, whoa, we got a 10-point lead in the Super Bowl. Like it was still sitting there like, all right, when is it going to drop?
Yeah, you want to see dead inside live with the Bills fan when the Bills game is on. Just dead. The poor thing. She's been through so much, we got the Super Bowls, but yeah, that's what I worry about. So listen,
they just need to get a 13-point lead and then we can all exhale. Once they get a 13-point lead, then we know this time it's different. It's 13 points, not 10.
Or they just need to not play Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. Like,
man,
like think about 94, right? When the Niners won that Super Bowl, they smashed the Chargers. We haven't seen Super Bowls like that. There are no blowout Super Bowls anymore. They're always tight, it feels like. And I feel like that it's allowed. You're allowed to do that. But the 49ers have been in this situation where these games are always tight. But like in theory, they could go up against a different AFC team and smash them.
Yeah.
Or you drop an interception in the NFC Championship game, or your quarterback gets his elbow knocked into and it explodes. It's always been something, man. You know what I mean? Or it's, you go back to the Harbaugh years. Like it's been heartbreak in the worst possible way. I feel like 7 times now? Seven, right? It's been 7 excruciating playoff and Super Bowl losses, I think. Like excruciating.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them, just the bizarre playoff history, good and bad for the 49ers. They went into Lambeau Field against Aaron Rodgers, didn't score an offensive touchdown, and won the game, right? You had the crazy game in 2011 against the Saints where there was like 8 lead changes in the last 2 minutes of the game. Mm-hmm. They almost pulled off at the time the biggest comeback in Super Bowl history, and the Ravens when the friggin' lights go out in the middle of the biggest game of the planet. Like, they have had some bizarre and memorable Super Bowl moments. The 2 biggest comebacks in the history of the NFC Championship game are 49ers comebacks, one against Atlanta and one obviously this year against the Lions. Yeah. Like the playoff moments from this team in the last 20 years have been unbelievable.
Makes me feel like somebody made a deal with somebody that has some kind of sway over time and space for that 94 team. They're like, look, we're going to give you Dion. You're going to smash the league. You're going to smash the Super Bowl. But listen, we got to get it back in some way. And we've gotten it back tenfold now. It's been
well. Let's
it's
be
been
honest.
brutal.
That would have been Dion, and then he made the same deal going to the Cowboys the next year, and
Yeah.
both franchises have been nothing since.
That's a great point. Maybe it is Dion. That's a great point.
But you guys have brought up Mahomes multiple times and how hard it is to beat him, and I got a theory on why the Niners struggle. And Rob, I think you have the audio because it has to do with the audio that Kyle was talking about being able to change things at the line of scrimmage with Purdy. Do you have that audio?
Yeah. Okay. Here is, can Brock Purdy change the protections at the line of scrimmage?
He has the same responsibility every quarterback I've ever coached has. It's Matt Ryan changed protections his whole career. And then he got with me and he's like, I can change that. I'm like, go ahead. If you see it, change it, pick it up. I'd much rather throw deeper. But we have an offense that's built to where you don't have to. You're hot. You can't just throw it to Julio for a 5-yard gain. And they are bailing at that time. And I bet you Julio turns it into a 13-yard gain. And if you do that the whole game and you just trust that we have an answer, now your mind's a lot more clear and you can play at a higher level. But go ahead. If you see something, dude, you always have freedom to make something better. But usually the more they get confidence in your offense and the more they see it, they're like, man, why would I waste my mind trying to fix this play? I'm just going to give it to that outlet there and let him perform. And to me, that's what takes pressure off a quarterback. He doesn't have to run the whole thing, not because he's not capable. You want him to play at the highest level.
That's my rub there, right at the end. Why would I fix that play? I'm just going to get it to my outlet. That's predictable. If that's what you do all the time, you become predictable. What did we see in the Super Bowl? The Chiefs said, well, we're taking away Debo because that's where they're going to go. And we'll disguise everything else so that the other players, it takes Purdy a little bit longer, an extra tick to find it. That's the problem. That's the rub I have. Like, he says they have the freedom, but then he also says, and he gives a whole bunch of reasons why not to. So it's kind of one of those things where he's like, yeah, you can do it, but there's no reason to because you have this easy outlet. My thing is look at all the quarterbacks that dominate the league. Once a decade, you get a quarterback that's not like a true field journal. But Brady, Peyton, Breeze, Rodgers, Mahomes, they all change things at the line of scrimmage. That's the difference between them and everybody else. Can Purdy do that? I don't know. A lot of quarterbacks can't. But if you're not striving for that, you're just taking the easy way out. And that's my problem is they're taking the easy way out that works 95% of the time. The problem is that 5% of the time rears its head at critical moments against the best teams who know how predictable you are. And that's my problem with it is you're saying take the easy way out because it'll work a vast majority of the time. And I think that right there is the critical problem with Kyle is he takes the easy way out because 95% of the time it works. The thing is sometimes you have to go off the script to be able to beat a defense that knows what you're wanting to do.
And Spags knows what he wants to do. And Spags knows how to defend Kyle. And that's, I mean, honestly, he's the guy that you have to figure out, how can I beat this guy? And I just hope that, I mean, I've seen some things that I feel like Kyle watched the Super Bowl and was like, all right, we've got to change some things up. The Pearsall pick being one, right? Like, I hope that that's the case, but obviously we won't know. I mean, maybe we'll know. They play the Chiefs this season in the regular season. We'll see how that game goes. But and just the fact that, you know, he tried to hire Spags, right? He's like, listen, if I can't beat him, I'm going to try and get him to join me. You know, even interviewed one of his lieutenants for the open spot. I don't know that he ever thought that he would hire that guy. I think that was just a fact-finding mission. But I think Kyle understands, like, all right, Spagnuolo knows how to defend me. I've got to figure out how to change some things up to at least surprise him a little bit. And so hopefully that is the case if they make it to the Super Bowl and have to face that damn Chiefs team again.
Well, we got a minute. I'm going to buy that truck I've been wanting.
Wait, don't you need like weeks to shop for a car?
I don't. Carvana makes it super convenient to find exactly what I want.
Hold up. You're buying a car on your phone? Isn't that more of a laptop thing?
You can shop wherever you want.
I like to do my research, read reviews, compare models. Plus, Carvana has thousands of options. How'd you decide on that truck?
Because I like it.
Oh, that is a great reason.
Go to Carvana.com to sell your car the convenient way.
Look at Kyle's choices for defensive coordinator this offseason. Spagnuolo 1, Bill Belichick 2. Like he said in the interview, I approached Bill Belichick. I said, you can do any job on the staff that you want. think about that for a minute. And I talked about this on our channel, and I have blasted Kyle in the past for being arrogant, because I think at times he is. I think that shows a ton of humility by Kyle Shanahan to say to Bill Belichick, a guy that is way more accomplished than he is, the greatest coach of all time with a fistful of championship rings, and he was going to hire him. Think about that dynamic, what it would have been like when they walk in the room and you've got Kyle here, the head coach, and this other coach on the staff who's way more accomplished with all these Super Bowl rings coming in. It would have been kind of chopping Kyle's legs out from under him a little bit, but he was willing to do it anyway. I give him a lot of credit for that. And look, he probably knew Belichick wasn't going to accept. He made the offer anyway. So I do wonder if maybe, like you're saying, he has kind of realized like something's missing. We got to change something because what we have done has not worked so far.
And that's great.
We talked about it last show. Like it's only John Fox, Bud Grant, Marv Levy, and Dan Reeves are the only head coaches who have lost 2 Super Bowls or more without winning one. And right now, there's a lot of career left for Shanahan. But right now, he's going to be remembered with those guys if things stay status quo and he doesn't get one, as opposed to somebody like Andy Reid who got one later in his career and many later in his career. So, it's a huge year for Kyle. It really is.
It is.
And there's no reason they can't. Like, I know I've heard all those stats like, a coach that didn't win his first Super Bowl appearance has never won his second or whatever. That's not true, but whatever the stats are about like how many Super Bowls he's lost, like none of that matters. Just like it doesn't matter that teams that lose the Super Bowl usually don't get back the next year. Like there is nothing preventing the 49ers from getting back to a Super Bowl next year. Nothing. There's a reason they're favored to do that. There's a reason they are where they are. I know there's like a lot of doom and gloom talk about climbing the mountain again. And I know it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy, but like they can do it. Even if they had won the Super Bowl last year, they would still be exactly where they are right now, right? Training camp would still have started. It would still be exactly the same. They'd still have to climb the mountain. You just have to go one step higher.
Can we all just like imagine next offseason, what are we going to do if they did win the Super Bowl? Because like, the big talking points you're going to have next offseason is going to be, what do you pay Purdy? Well, if we just won the Super Bowl, I'm going to say pay him whatever the heck he wants.
Blank check.
Right. Yeah.
I'll find something to complain about. Don't worry about it. I'll figure something out. And I'm glad I could cheer everybody up at the end. I'm available for birthday parties if people want me to come and just make everybody miserable. I could do that too. So, all right, Levin and Stats. This was awesome, guys. I'm glad we got a chance to be able to do this. Everybody subscribe to No Huddle Revolution Podcast on YouTube. Same with the Gold Standard 49ers Podcast Network. They're killing it over there. Guys, thanks so much for the time today.
Anytime.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Nice.
Thanks, everybody.
Later.
All-star closer Kenley Jansen, we have a question.
What's the best podcast of all time? Baseball isn't boring, baby.
I'm Rob Bradford, and every single day I'm sitting down with the biggest names to show you this great game is the greatest game. It's my podcast. It's my passion. It's a cause I started more than 2 years ago and is now the most prolific national daily baseball pod there is. Another fact, so jump aboard the BIB Express. Follow and listen to Baseball Isn't Boring, presented by Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.